And so that, I know that that wasn't factored into this, but just thinking abstractly, it could be another benefit to being involved in this, because our energy costs could be going down, right?
That is correct. If the rates go down by, for the CCA, if they go down by a certain percentage, the streetlight rates would see that similar decrease. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then I think Chris touched on it. The energy cost savings is probably another abstract savings long term, because we're not going to be paying, they're not going to be consuming as much energy because they're more energy efficient. Right? Okay. On the funding, not to further complicate a complex situation, but Linda brought up a question about the city manager's funding option that could potentially take us below our 20% threshold. And so we would have to pass a resolution to modify that for that purpose. Would it be feasible and or practical to do a combined funding that wouldn't result in us dropping below the 20% threshold? So do a partial Bank of America funding and then a general fund borrowing that wouldn't result in us dropping below that 20%.
The last we saw when we put the budget together, correct me if I'm wrong, was about $8.3 million in the reserves, if I remember correctly.
We're actually projecting to end 18-19 with 8.9 million, which, taking the 20%, we would only be about $250,000 above that or below that 20% threshold. It's really not that much. And if sales tax were to come in higher than expected at the end of 17, 18, which we're still waiting for the last payment, then we may not need to do that. But I won't know for certain until probably closer to middle or end of September.
The other problem is, depending on a sales tax bump, that goes to public safety in terms of a raise. Not this year, but next year. In the event that's a multiple increase that's granted each year based on sales tax increase. And so that's going to eat the surplus up. If you're concerned about keeping the surplus, negotiate with Bank of America, see if you can get it down a little bit. But I don't think we can do it without adjusting the 20% to 15%, 18%, whatever that amounts to.
Does this money have to come out of the general fund reserve? Can it come out of other accounts and then be repaid back into those other accounts?
There are fund balances in other funds. I think the city manager's intention in using general fund is to get the higher interest back into the general fund as opposed to paying it to someone else. But yes, there are fund balances in other funds that we can use.
Could we also maybe charge 4% to ourselves and pay back to another fund 2% and have 2% go into the general fund?
I don't know how legal that is. I have to look at some of my...
have to be creative? I mean,
It would have to be creative. I think you simply, where the money's coming from, whatever that percentage is, then that interest would go back to that specific. So if you took out 50% from Measure U and 50% from General Fund, then you would split up the interest to those two funds.
well, I say that because I think we have a few investments that we're earning less than 2%. It might be a good investment to borrow from ourselves from another fund and pay a higher interest rate to ourselves.
Yeah, our overall interest across the board for all 65 million is about 1.47, something like that.
We have the Bank of Hemet CD is 1%, so we could get 2 from it.
Well, just a thought. I'm not opposed to temporarily adjusting that 20% threshold if it's a nominal amount that would be made up shortly. That might be the simplest thing. It was just a thought that occurred to me that that we might be able to avoid it if we did a joint. I think that's all the questions I have, but I just want to reiterate, I think probably some comments I made when we first started talking about this. Some very abstract benefit that I see to this whole project. Again, for the public safety people, it's really important that you have accurate color descriptions of cars at night, and those sodium vapor lights really distort colors dramatically. And so I think from their operational perspective and tactics, it's critical to that need, and not necessarily why the project was considered in the first place, but there's a number of spin-off benefits. And I think one of the biggest ones comes from the fact that we're really working hard to address the whole safety issue and the feeling of comfort and safety citywide. Sure. And the appearance of cleanliness. And LED lights are clean lights, and the sodium vapor lights are dirty and dingy looking lights, in my opinion. And I think just brightening up the whole nighttime landscape with LED lights is going to give a whole new subconscious psychological feel to how you feel moving around in our city at night. And I think that's something that you can't really put a price tag on that, but it's right in keeping with everything that we've been trying to do and what our community members said in a number of surveys of what they would like to see. So for those intrinsic, abstract things, I just wanted to bring that out and share my thoughts on that.
When I first got here, I met with the Measure U committee and recommended they consider 2 additional items besides boots on the ground. One was cameras. Moreno Valley has some 200 cameras throughout the city. And the other was streetlights, additional and higher powered streetlights. My experience says that it adds immensely to the public safety aspects. They didn't agree with me, but nonetheless, we're getting it done anyway on the streetlights.
Bonnie, did you have another question?
Yeah, Chris brought it up.
Right. Are there any other questions of staff? All right, staff is looking for a recommendation. There's two options.
And if I may, Mayor, there's actually, in the staff report, there's kind of a starting recommendation, which is actually approving the total project cost of 2.1. Where did it go?
902.
That's the one. So we kind of start with looking for that approval, and then from there split out to which option would the council like to see.
Right, I'll move to approve the purchase of these lights.
I'll second.
Please vote. Yes, sir.
Without a funding option. Without a funding option. We'll go over funding option next. I think she wants 2 different motions.
Okay, please vote. This is for approving the LED retrofit project.
Thank you, council.
Okay, so that passes. Up next, 2 funding options. One being to finance with Bank of America, and option 2 to be able to self-fund it. Self-finance. if I may, throw in my 2 cents, for whatever 2 cents it's worth. In our last meeting, when we approved moving forward with the CCA, we did it in looking out for our citizens and saving our community money. For me, if we look at option 2, it's an additional savings of $423,000.
428.
That money goes back into the general fund. So there's been, over the months, there's been comments about adding money into the general fund. And over time, I look at this as a way to add in $6.8 million over a 20-year period. So for me, I'm in favor of option 2.
Okay, I'll try this. I'd like make a motion that we accept option 2 as the funding mechanism, with the understanding that as we get closer to the actual implementation and acquisition, that we look closely at what that actually does to our fund balance.
I second that. Invest local.
Please vote after he clears
We
them
need
out.
to clear.
All right. So this is for option 2. All right, that passes unanimous.
Thank you, council. I have one quick question, probably for our city attorney. I know I'm not allowed to, and it's really late. In terms of bringing back anything we might need to, if we do have to amend the 20% reserve policy resolution, we'll bring that back? Okay. Thank you, council. Our future's bright. Okay.
And start with Florida
I
Avenue.
will start with Florida Avenue.
Make it like daylight at night.
Okay. Deal.
Okay.
Thank you.
Started with a pun and ended with one.
Well, gotta keep it light.
All right.
Oh.
Moving along. City council reports. Councilmember Brown.
Oh, yeah. Well, in the interest of time, I know that we still have a lot to do, but I had the occasion to do something brand new for me. It was attend the inaugural meeting of the Western Community Energy Board of Directors. I'm Bonnie's alternate, but Bonnie had a conflict and wasn't able to attend, so this was the CCA that we all approved and agreed to. And so this meeting was held in Riverside on August 23rd, and the founding member jurisdictions include the cities of Canyon Lake, East Vale, Hemet, Jurupa Valley, Norco, Paris, and Wildomar. Everybody was represented with the exception of Norco. They weren't able to get a representative there. And the actions that they took, the first thing that they did was the board elected Mayor Ben Benoit from the city of Wildomar as the chair, and Councilmember Laura Roughton from the city of Jurupa Valley as the vice chair. And their term will last for the remainder of 2018 through the 2019 calendar year. The board also approved the implementation and management services agreement between WRCOG and WCE to support cost-effective management of WC operations and services. So in September, the board will consider other actions related to the phase-in of services and energy rate options for the customers, and we'll be moving forward on that. If the board decides to continue forward after the presentation of the rate savings report, the plan will be developed and submitted by December 20th of 2018 to the California Public Utilities Commission for approval. And this will allow for a potential launch date of 2020. And we also had presentations from 3 operational consultants that are going to be assisting in this endeavor. Calpine Energy Solutions, that's going to be handling all the data management and customer contact services. And the Energy Authority, TEA, will procure and help manage WCE's energy portfolio and also help develop risk management policies. And then EES Consulting is going to help WCE develop its rate savings report, implementation plan, and development of energy rates, and provide regulatory analysis and support. So off to a good start. A lot of things got accomplished, and Tyler slipped away. I was going to ask if I left anything out, but I think that's we're in the starting block and moving down the lane right now.
Thank you.
Yes.
Councilmember Krupa.
For the most part, all the regional committees and commissions are dark in August, so it was really kind of nice. But the only thing, the library board and okay, the summer reading program was a success with a lot of enrollees. The lunch program was phenomenal with a lot of kids coming over to the library and having lunch. And there is an e-gaming. Did I read that on Facebook? Come to the library and play your e-games. Come on up, because I want you to tell them about the grant funding that you've gotten, because I don't have my notes.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me up here. I don't know anything about e-gaming. That's not us doing that. But grant funding.
Grant funding, yes.
So make me happy. We have received over $15,000 in the last 2 months for 2 different types of funding for book material. One was for Spanish, and this is totally from the state library. One was for Spanish and bilingual material. And the other is for, oh goodness, veterans, life over 50, STEM. I'm missing several. We're in the process of pulling those book orders together, and it's very exciting. The state has really been supporting us, and $7,500 each. So, yay!
Yes.
So, thank you.
Alrighty, thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
And let's see, with RCTC, and this is just basically for information, there are several California state congressional people who are contributing to the fund to repeal SB 1, which is, I believe, Prop 6. And it has the new transportation tax bill that is coming out of Washington, D.C., that they hope to have inked by the end of December, because the chairman, it's not Schuster, it's close to that, is retiring, is to add a 25-cent federal excise tax to gasoline and a 12.5-cent federal excise diesel tax. So it's like, well, we want to repeal California's tax, which will only go to California to fix the roads, and plop in our federal tax so that we can get it all in DC. So I just thought I'd bring that up. Water Master met yesterday. Quick meeting. The assessments for all of the participating jurisdictions is going to stay at the same level as it has been the last few years, which is $30 an acre foot. And we have some things coming up in the future, but everything right now is just kind of quiet for the summertime. So that's it.
Yes, WRCOG and SCAG were dark for August. Our homeless task force met yesterday, and we were pleased to have Sunday sales from Supervisor Washington's office, and she, along with Susan Larkin, briefed us on the emergency declaration for shelters, and we'll need to address that relatively soon, and have that, and hopefully make a recommendation from the task force, and then discussion with council moving forward. It does allow us to apply for several different or certainly the nonprofits apply for several different grants that are available, and without it, they'll get nothing. So we need to really look at that strategically and move forward as we should. Skate Plaza Task Force, we'll be scheduling a third community meeting. We've had some great participation in the first two meetings. Really, some really excited kids. Looking forward to this sometime coming to fruition, so looking forward to that. And I think most of us have attended the Business Expo in the mall that the Chamber put on. That was very, very successful and a great event. And I do want to mention, for those who may be listening on the website, on the live stream, tomorrow Eastern is hosting a funding fair, which will have state and federal agencies, funding agencies out, presenting their funding programs, and you have an opportunity to sit down with them one-on-one to discuss your projects and funding resources to pay for them. So that's going to start at 8:30 in the morning. Registration is 8 o'clock. It goes from 8:30 to noon. And it's not just about water issues, but also CDBG funding, street lighting, everything. And so it goes from 8:30 to 12, and then after 12 o'clock, you can meet one-on-one with the specific funding agency that where your interests lie. So we hope that those that are interested in doing that and interested in receiving some money for their projects will come out and participate.
Well, all of mine were dark in August, so we'll try for September.
And mine too were dark, but I did attend the Business Expo at the mall. There was a great turnout this year, and I think there was more people there this year than there was last year. So I think it was a success. Hopefully the tenants in the mall saw an increase in business that day as well. Good, very good.
Mayor, if I might, I overlooked a very special occasion that happened in here yesterday. We were here for a badge pinning ceremony. Five of our Hemet's finest police officers. We now have 2 new captains and a new lieutenant and a new corporal
And a new sergeant.
and a new sergeant. So not that they're new people, but newly promoted. And it was a very nice, and the audience was full of family members, and Chief Webb invited all of the family members up to participate in the badge pinning with each of the recipients of the new rank, and very proud moment, and big milestone for us moving forward. So
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great event and a great turnout because the council chambers was completely full, which was nice to see. So, I got a funny story about that. My wife said, I didn't see any of the pictures that were posted online. I said, because it wasn't my event. They were there for the police officers that were promoted. So, up next is ad hoc master annexation. There's nothing to report on that. Florida Avenue. I do want to touch on something on the Florida Avenue median. I met with the new station captain for the San Gregorio Pass this about a week ago now, and I had a discussion with him about the Florida Avenue raised median and asked him if he could sit down with John and have a conversation with John from a law enforcement perspective on the impacts of the raised median, being, not to mention having Caltrans and the CHP as a close partner to each other. So hopefully he'll be able to have that conversation with John and shed some light, so. That's all I have for that. CDBG ad hoc?
We met, made our recommendation, so they'll be bringing that to shortly.
Very good. City manager's report. Future agenda items.
With that one emergency declaration.
Okay. And then I want to add, we have on this long list, the vacant city-owned infill property. I would like to add on there, a specific property is the property at Florida and Acacia. It's a triangle-shaped, less than an acre. Maybe we can have a conversation about that property and bring that before council, either as a work study or an action item. Florida and Acacia. But yeah. Any others? All right. With that, we will adjourn into closed session.